every sign's strongest hours today, and the one stretch that suits routine work rather than fresh starts, are coming in this reading. Good morning and welcome. These readings are based on your Western tropical sun sign, so listen for the sign the sun was in when you were born. Readings today are from your sun sign. The link below finds yours in 10 seconds. All times are New York time. The moon is a waning crescent in Gemini, keeping thought quick and conversation easy. There is a quiet pause running from 7:25 in the evening yesterday to 2:07 at night, a stretch that favors tidying and routine over fresh starts. The sun is in Leo and enters Virgo in 15 days. 5 aspects come exact. Moon trine Venus at 2:57 at night. Moon trine Pluto at 8:52 in the morning. Moon sextile Neptune at 9:06 in the morning. Moon conjunct Uranus at 10:51 in the morning. And Moon sextile Jupiter at 4:18 in the afternoon. Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto are retrograde, inviting review. Aries, today your natural warmth and knowledge have a wide, generous stage, and you get to enjoy it rather than prove it. Yesterday, the day began with the moon in your house of money, possessions, and what you value, so your attention likely set close to earnings and practical worth. On the work and money side, the Sun and Jupiter are together in Leo, in your 5th house of joy and creation, which favors work you actually like doing. Put your best hour into the piece of the job that has some play in it. Venus, your period lord, rests strong in Libra, in the house of partnership, Aries, so agreements and one-to-one conversations are supported today. Name what you want plainly and let the other person answer. That is the payoff of leaning into enjoyment. It makes you easy to say yes to. For energy, the moon shifts into your 3rd house of courage and communication at 2:07 at night, and its gentle sextile with Neptune at 9:06 in the morning softens your edges. Courage reaches you before caution does, and that is a true thing about you. Somewhere today, set out a little water or food for the birds or a stray animal, quietly, expecting nothing. May today bring you one moment worth remembering. Taurus, the ground under your life is being lit today, and that steadiness is yours to lean on. Yesterday, the moon opened in your 1st house of self, vitality and how you come across, so you likely felt unusually settled inside your own skin. The Sun and Jupiter both sit in Leo, in your 4th house of home and roots, which favors work done from a settled base, so handle the practical matter that sits closest to where you live. Venus, your ruler, is in her own sign of Libra in your 6th house of daily work and routine, and that is a true reflection of you, Taurus. You build slowly, and you build things that hold. In relationships, the moon moves into your 2nd house of resources and what you value at 2:07 at night, so let conversations today be about what you genuinely want to keep, not what you feel obliged to hold. For energy, keep the pace unhurried. Your body responds better to rhythm than to pushing. The ground steadies when you stop rushing it. As a small act of care, give someone your full, unhurried attention while they speak, asking nothing back. Your free full chart is waiting on the website whenever you want the deeper picture. Go easy on yourself today. The stars are patient, and you can be too. Gemini, today hands you back to yourself, and the shift is gentler than you might expect. Yesterday, the moon opened in your 12th house of rest, retreat, and letting go, so a quieter, more inward mood was understandable. At 2:07 at night, the moon moves into your 1st house, your own body and presence, and by 2:57 at night, it trines Venus, your period lord, strong in her own sign, Libra, in your 5th house of creativity. For work and money, that favors a bright idea aired early rather than polished in private. Watch what 10:51 in the morning brings, when the moon meets Uranus in your own sign. Gemini, this is where you feel it in relationships. Something you say lands with a suddenness that opens a conversation you had almost given up on. And by 4:18 in the afternoon, the moon sextiles Jupiter in your 3rd house. So keep talking. For energy, the sextile to Neptune at 9:06 in the morning supports slow starts. So let the morning ease in. Curiosity is your engine, and connection genuinely costs you nothing. Let the day settle by helping someone carry a load they are struggling under. A bag, a task, an hour of their work, asking nothing back. Wishing you a calm and steady day ahead. Cancer, today rewards you for naming what you are worth, out loud and without apology. Yesterday leaned on friends, gangs, and the wider network, and you likely felt both generous and slightly stretched by it. In work and money, the Sun and Jupiter sit together in your 2nd house of earned value and voice, so this is a good window for stating a rate, a role, or a request in plain language. Say it once, simply, and let it rest. There's also a quieter comfort waiting later in this reading. Cancer, you are ruled by the moon, and you read a room before anyone in it says so. Venus, your period lord, sits well placed in Libra, in the 4th house of home and belonging, and that is the comfort promised. Your steadying moves happen at home today, in a plain conversation, across a kitchen table. For energy, the moon shifts from the 11th house into the 12th at 2:07 at night, which favors an earlier close to your evening and a lighter final hour. So today, the value you claim outside is balanced by the ease you build inside. If someone you know has been on their own lately, call them or sit with them, expecting nothing at all. Let today be simple. That is enough. Leo, today you occupy your own ground, and warmth arrives ahead of you before you have spoken a word. Yesterday, the moon opened in your house of career and public standing, so you likely felt watched, measured, a little on show. Now the moon has moved on into your 11th house of friends and networks at 2:07 at night, which softens the spotlight into company. Venus, your period lord, sits in Libra in her own sign, in your 3rd house of speaking and near connections, so your words carry ease today. Send the message, make the call, ask plainly for what a project needs. That ease has a peak, and I will name it shortly. Leo, in relationships, the sun stands in Leo in your 1st house with Jupiter beside it, so you are simply more yourself, and people meet that. The peak is this: moon sextile Jupiter, exact at 4:18 in the afternoon, a good window for the generous conversation you have been circling. For energy, keep it unhurried. Presence, not performance, is what carries you. The spotlight became company today, and that is the arc. So somewhere ordinary, give up your seat, your place in line, or 20 unhurried minutes to someone who needs it more, asking nothing back. May something small go beautifully right for you today. Virgo, today favors a quiet inward turn, and your clearest work will happen away from the noise. Yesterday, the moon opened in your 9th house of belief, learning and long journeys, so your thoughts likely ranged wide, reaching for meaning more than detail. Now the Sun and Jupiter both rest in your 12th house in Leo, which supports rest, reflection, and finishing things privately rather than launching them loudly. For work and money, Venus, your period lord, sits in Libra in her own sign, in your second house of income and resources, a steady window for reviewing what you earn, spend, and value. Precision is instinct for you, Virgo, and quiet service is the shape your care takes. So let that instinct sort one small financial detail rather than the whole ledger. In relationships, the moon moves into your 10th house of work and public standing at 2/7 at night, so conversations may lean practical. Say plainly what you need instead of quietly carrying it. For energy, honor the 12th house mood. Shorter hours, earlier rest, less proving. The day begins wide and ends focused, and that narrowing is a gift. Some word today: sit with someone who has been struggling to learn something and show them patiently, expecting nothing back. Carry this lightly and have a truly good day. Libra, today your presence carries a quiet authority, and you barely have to raise your voice to be heard. Yesterday, the moon opened in your 8th house of shared resources and deep change, so the day likely asked you to sit with something below the surface. Venus, your ruler, sits in Libra in your 1st house of self, at home in its own sign, and that is your identity affirmation made literal. You find the balance point in almost any room, and today, the room feels it. For work and money, that soft authority is your best instrument. Ask plainly for what a piece of work is worth. Libra, the moon moves into your 9th house of wider horizons and learning at 2/7 at night, and the trine between the moon and Venus is exact at 2:57 at night, which favors reconciliation over argument in close relationships. Let a partner finish their sentence before you answer. For energy, keep the day unhurried. Balance is easier held than recovered. Saturn sits retrograde in your 7th house of partnership, so patience with another person's slower pace serves you well. The arc closes gently. Pass on something useful you no longer need to someone who does, and let that be the whole of it. The day is yours to shape. Shape it kindly. Scorpio, your name is being spoken in rooms you are not standing in today, and that is worth carrying gently. Yesterday, the moon opened in your house of partnership and close alliances, so the day likely felt closely shared, tuned to someone else's rhythm as much as your own. On the work side, the sun in its own sign, Leo and Jupiter both stand in your 10th house of standing and career, which means visibility comes to you without you chasing it. Let your work speak plainly today, and let one person see the depth behind it. Scorpio, you are ruled by Mars. You go deep where others skim, and your resilience is easy to underestimate. In relationships, the moon sits exalted in that 7th house of partnership, and it moves on into your 8th house at 2/7 at night, so the earlier hours favor the honest conversation you have been circling. For energy, Venus, your period lord, sits in its own sign, Libra, in your 12th house of rest and retreat, a kind signal to protect quiet time rather than fill it. That public standing we named at the start settles best when you are rested. Say the encouraging word you have been meaning to say to someone, unasked, and let it simply be said. Move through today at your own pace. It is the right one. Sagittarius, today favors the honest teaching voice in you, and the search matters more than the destination. Yesterday's opening leaned into daily work, health and routine, so the day likely felt like small maintenance tasks, quietly asking for your attention. On the work and money side, the sun and your ruler Jupiter share Leo in the 9th house, the ground of learning and long view, and that suits you. Optimism is your default setting, not a pose. Your period lord Venus sits in Libra, her own sign, in the 11th house of networks and gains. So a good step is to write one honest message to a group you belong to. Sagittarius. In relationships, the moon shifts into your house of partnership and one-to-one meeting at 2/7 at night, which is the payoff I hinted at. The day supports planar conversation, so name the thing you have been circling. For energy, Mars and Uranus also occupy that 7th house, so pace yourself around other people's speed rather than matching it, and keep the routine simple today. So the learning house holds the day steady from beginning to end. Let the act of care be this: quietly finish a chore that was never yours, and say nothing about it at all. May the day meet you kindly and leave you a little lighter. Capricorn, today favors quiet consolidation rather than a push, and your steadiest work is the kind nobody is watching. Since the moon opened yesterday in your 5th house of creativity, romance, and the things you make for joy, the day likely carried a warm, expressive pull. That moon now shifts into your 6th house of work, routine, and health at 2/7 at night, so your attention turns from inspiration toward maintenance, and this is a good window for tidying the systems you rely on. Venus, your period lord, sits well placed in Libra in your 10th house of career and public standing, which supports careful, visible professional effort. Capricorn, in relationships, Mercury sits in your 7th house, the house of partnership, so conversations go furthest when you slow down and let the other person finish the thought. For energy, Mars and Uranus also occupy that 6th house of daily routine, so pace yourself. Shorter, steadier stretches of effort suit you better today than one long sprint. Saturn rules you, and you play the long game by nature, not by discipline, which is exactly why this maintenance day is yours. So let the day settle from expression into upkeep, and somewhere in it, thank someone whose work usually goes unnoticed, asking nothing at all in return. Whatever today asks of you, you have met harder days than this. Aquarius, today favors meeting people face to face rather than solving them from a distance. Yesterday, the moon opened in your 4th house of home, family, and your inner ground, so the day likely carried a quieter, more inward feel. On the work and money side, Venus, your period lord, sits in Libra, in her own sign, in your 9th house of wider vision and learning, which supports you in choosing the broader, principled path over the quick fix. Saturn rules your sign, Aquarius, and it shows in this. You think from an angle nobody else tried, and today rewards that angle in conversation. With the sun in Leo in your 7th house of partnership, alongside Jupiter, the people opposite you become the mirror. Let the moon trine Pluto, exact at 8:52 in the morning, be your window for the honest talk you have been circling. For energy, the moon shifts into your 5th house of expression and play at 2/7 at night, so ease the evening towards something light rather than one more push. The inward pull of yesterday resolves outward today, through people. If someone you know is unwell, sit with them a while and let them set the pace, asking nothing at all in return. Let today be useful rather than perfect. Pisces, today rewards you in the plainest place, the ordinary work you do without applause. Yesterday's mood carried a restless, talkative edge, with the moon in your 3rd house of courage, siblings and short journeys, and that busyness settles now. The sun and Jupiter sit together in your 6th house of daily work, service, and routine, so the small, unglamorous task is where your standing quietly grows. Pick one recurrent duty and do it properly today. Your ruler Jupiter is the reason compassion moves you first and imagination reaches where analysis cannot. And here it makes your work feel like care. Venus, your period lord, holds her own sign Libra in the 8th house of shared money, trust in things held jointly, Pisces, which favors an honest conversation about a joint expense or something you owe or are owed. Speak plainly and the trust holds. The moon shifts into your 4th house of home and inner rest at 2:07 at night, so evening asks for quiet rather than one more errand. Let the day close as it began, in useful, unhurried service. Share a meal with someone who is hungry, and let that be the whole of it, wanting nothing back. Walk gently today, and let the day come to you. Whatever the day asks of you, may you meet it with a steady heart and a clear mind, and may the small choices you make today feel like your own. Let the hours unfold at their own pace. There is no need to rush what is already moving toward you. Carry a little patience for yourself, and a little more for the people around you. If one kind thing crosses your path, do it quietly and let it stay quiet. The sky offers weather, and you offer the walking. Between the two, most days find their shape. If today's sky was useful, subscribing keeps it coming every morning.